Ether and space energy. There are those who believe that it was once part of the periodic table and it has been removed. Although considered scientifically dead for a century, the ether is resurfacing as a theory to explain the inexplicable sea of energy and the void that surrounds us. From ancient times until the beginning of the 20th century, the ether was the last link that connected physics with metaphysics. In ancient times, it was believed that the whole world was full of a thin, airy, almost intangible material, which the ancient Greeks called ether, the Indians prana, and the Chinese chi. Pythagoras believed in the existence of the ether as the fifth element of nature, while Eastern cultures called the same element akasha. Aristotle argued that in the addition to the four elements, earth, water, air, and fire, there was also ether in nature. According to his view, the sky differed fundamentally from the world as it consisted of a fifth element, ether, which was also the fifth substance of nature, hence the word quintessence. Aristotle was led to this conclusion because he observed that all heavenly bodies are luminous, erase endless circles, are indestructible and unchanging, so some unknown form of energy would have to be responsible for it. In the centuries that followed, alchemists searching for the quintessence kept alive the theory of the ether. In the symbolic depictions of the alchemists, ether always represented the head, the fifth limb of the body, while the other elements were represented by the other four limbs, hands and feet. According to these symbols, the ether was considered a higher element of nature and the etheric state as one of the higher levels of the spiritual body. In scientific and philosophical circles, the theory of ether again gained popularity in the 17th century. The Dutch astronomer Christian Huygens, 1629 to 1695, believed that in the vacuum of space there was an invisible fluid that waved the photons, just as air creates waves for the propagation of sound. He called this material ether after Aristotle. The same view was adopted by Descartes, Copernicus, and Newton. In fact, the latter argued that there was an ether in order to satisfy his need for an immovable frame of reference, so as to explain the movement of the heavenly bodies. In the 19th century, Faraday argued for the existence of the photobulb ether, simultaneously laying the foundations of electricity and magnetism. And then James Clerk Maxwell, 1831 to 1878, defining fields of states of mechanical compression of an invisible but real space-filling material, the ether, added that electromagnetic waves should be regarded as elastic compressions of the ether. Electromagnetic waves were vibrations of this intermediate weightless and fluid material, as waves of the sea are vibrations of water and sound vibrations of air. According to Maxwell, the vacuum appeared to act dielectrically, as if it were electrically polarized, so he tried to offer some sort of mechanical model for electromagnetic wave propagation in absolute vacuum, and thus he imagined the void to be filled by the mysterious substance of ether, which supports and encloses the time-varying electric and magnetic fields, a pulsating but invisible jelly that pervades the universe. The vibration of the ether caused light to travel through it, just as water waves travel through water and sound waves through the air. This strange material was thin, airy, almost intangible. All the heavenly bodies passed through it without slowing down, but it was compact enough for transverse waves to propagate with enormous speed. Among the 19th century scientists who championed the ether theory was the Serbian-American genius Nikola Tesla, the inventor of the alternating current induction motors, which revolutionized electromechanics, as well as 700 other pioneering inventions. Tesla argued that a wireless transmitter does not produce airwaves, which are a myth, but sound waves in the ether, which behave in every way like those in the air, except that owing to their great elastic force and extremely small density of the medium, their speed is that of light. The scientists who supported the theory of ether had proven its following axiomatic properties. Ether exists everywhere, fills the entire universe, permeates all matter, is the source of all energy, changing into matter or mass. It emits light but is transparent. There is no heat in the ether, no loss of energy. The ether is immobile, stagnant, and unprovable. But the ether theory was not to have much scientific life ahead of it. In 1887, the physicists Albert Michelson and Edward Morley wanted to confirm the existence of ether, and they performed an experiment that proved, however, that this element was non-existent. In this experiment, they proved that the speed of a beam of light does not change in whatever direction or distance it moves in the experimental setup. So since no changes were found but zero effect, ether did not exist. Since then, the ether theory has been considered problematic and controversial. However, the lucky shot was given in 1905 by Albert Einstein with the theory of relativity, E equals mc2, which showed that there was no ether to support the propagation of electromagnetic waves in a vacuum. Waves propagate by themselves, proclaiming that electromagnetic fields are entities in their own right that have the ability to travel in empty space. Even after Einstein's detonation, the ether was considered scientifically dead, quote unquote. Anyone who dealt with it was considered a romantic, if not a heretic. Dealing with the ether was considered pseudoscience and tarnished the good reputation of scientists. Over the years, the word ether acquired a pejorative meaning. Even today, the adjective ethereal means the fugitive, the one who is in his world. Nevertheless, there have always been scientists and researchers who risked their reputations by dealing with the forbidden theory of the ether, while some deniers of this theory later became its followers. Even Einstein himself gave a speech at Leiden University in 1920, where he seemed to have changed his attitude about the ether. To recap, we can say that according to the general theory of relativity, space is endowed with physical properties. In this sense, therefore, there is an ether. According to the general theory of relativity, space without the ether is inconceivable, because in such a space there would not only be no propagation of light, but also no possibility of the existence of the patterns of space and time, and therefore no space-time continuum. Quantum physics, as well as the various theories of zero-point energy, resurrected to some extent the foggy and forbidden theory of the ether. Thus appeared the so-called neo-etherists, who supported the convergence of physics and metaphysics. Wilhelm Reich was also a pioneering neo-etherist. He discovered Orgone, a primordial cosmic energy found everywhere in the universe, and which has almost all the characteristics of traditional ether. In 1954, the distinguished English physicist P.A.M. Dirac seriously questioned the advisability of science taking a second look at the theory of ether. Quote, physical theory not based on the ether seems to have reached its highest stage at the end of its possibilities. Perhaps we will see in the ether a new hope for the future, end quote. One of those who responded to Dirac's call was Silvertooth, an American scientist from Washington. In 1986, Silvertooth performed an experiment using laser equipment and his expertise in advanced optics. In this experiment, the movement of the Earth in space was measured. It has been calculated that our solar system is moving at full speed towards the constellation of Leo at a speed of 400 kilometers per second. That is 144,000 kilometers per hour. Silvertooth succeeded where Michelson Morley failed. The fact that the Earth's motion in space could be detected meant that there must have been a fixed reference point, the ether. Silvertooth used expensive equipment for his experiments, and his research was supported by the U.S. Air Force and another defense agency. It's not known whether he successfully repeated his experiment. It is known, however, that an Austrian physicist claimed that he had experimentally identified the existence of ether. Today's ether theorists do not see it as an invisible liquid found everywhere in the universe. Instead, they say it is a spiral foundation of the universe, which cannot be measured by instruments because it moves too fast. Dr. Moray B. King of Utah in the U.S. is not the only space energy scientist who believes that the ether moves in a spiral motion. The Indian scientist Paramahansa Tewari has the same opinion, and according to her, the universe, in every cubic centimeter of it, is full of colossal levels of energy which move at amazing speeds in vortex form. This is the reason why spiral motion dominates from galaxies to electrons. But why can't the energy of the ether be detected and used yet? One scientist described this energy as two giant, invisible elephants simultaneously pushing open a door from both sides. No matter how hard they push with equal force, the door is not going to open either way. Drawing etheric energy requires an appropriate difference potential. The theoreticians of the new physics believe that ether does not obey the notorious laws of thermodynamics, which state that energy cannot be created or destroyed but only change form. For them, energy always existed and always will exist. It does not need to be created or destroyed. What is needed is a new Einstein who will overcome the laws of conservation of energy and create the theoretical foundation on which the new ether technology will be based. But the problem is that people refuse to believe that they have unlimited possibilities in front of them, like Nikola Tesla believed, as long as they use their intelligence and instincts properly. Our planet is suffocating under the current energy model, which is based on the combustion of carbon compounds. Earth cannot wait any longer. It needs revolutionaries, not tomorrow but today. Not only words, but also action. The triumph of evil is the inaction of the good, according to what Edmund Burke said. And this I've translated from a Greek article for you. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.